Now, let's begin the third part with the following commands I have prepared for you. To start with, we're going to introduce functions. Functions can be considered as a block of code that can be called and used repeatedly. You can perform arithmetic operations, conditional tests, variable declarations, and pretty much anything you can think of. In our example, I have written down a function named try_me. A function has its body enclosed with open and closed curly braces. Inside the function, I've added a set of actions that the function performs. In here, I declared two variables, namely x and y, with their own values. The second part is a conditional test. It simply checks if the value of x variable is greater than the value of y variable. Since x is equal to 2 and y is equal to 10, that means x is not greater than y. This leaves the else if condition. It checks if x is lower than y, which we know is true. Thus, conditional test will run the alert message, multiplying both x and y variable. Let's paste it to the console. Now, we've created the function. All that is left is to call it. You can do that by using the name of the function, followed by open and close parenthesis. Let's try it out. As you can see, the alert message shows 20. Please review the explanation again if you did not follow it the first time, as we'll be dealing more complex if statements in the succeeding videos of this tutorial. The next one is how to use global variables. We already discussed variables in the first part of this tutorial series, but we have not yet introduced variable scopes. In here, we declare variables outside of any functions. It is usually written at the top of your code. It is commonly used to keep track of the changes to variable values within a session. All values inside this variable will remain within the code for as long as the code runs, unless external factor shows up. For example, with a page refresh, all global variable values that the script uses will be removed. In our example, we declare a variable c with an initial value of 0. We then create a function named changeValue. Inside this function, we assign a new value to c, changing it from 0 to 3. Then, provide an alert message to show the output. Let's copy it to the console and press enter. Now, let's call the function and see what happens. As you can see, instead of 0, it displays 3. For the third part, we'll be adding delays to call a function. It is important to determine when should the function be called in a complex script. We can achieve this using the setTimeout function. It is used to call a function after a specific time elapsed. Delays is represented in milliseconds. If you are wondering, 1 second is equivalent to 1000 milliseconds. In our example, I created a function named callMeAgain. The function simply displays an alert message saying, "Hi there." At the bottom part of the example, we call the function after 3 seconds using the setTimeout. Let's try things out. As you can see, the function was still called, but it was called only after 3 seconds. I hope you're still there. Let's continue on the next one. To create automatic bets, we can call a function repeatedly. We can achieve that by using mutation observer function and the set timeout function. If you notice, when we are betting, the buttons get disabled, then enabled again, for us to continue betting. This is where we base the time we trigger our own dynamic clicks to buttons. Mutation observer simply goes to every properties of a target element. It detects changes on properties of an element you are watching. For example, when you wanted to detect a button from getting disabled, depending on the property you are checking, you can call whatever function you created in response to the change of property detected by the mutation observer function. In our example code, I created a function named callMeAgain. This function calls for a click action to our high button. Following the function, I created a variable named observer. This handles mutation observer function. As you can see, there is a conditional test that checks for disabled property. In the conditional test, if the mutation found that the target element is disabled, it does nothing, since it's disabled. But if by chance, the mutation found that the target element is not disabled, it will call the function callMeAgain after 4 seconds delay. After creating the mutation observer function, we will bind it to the multiply game high button. The last line in the example calls the click action to the high button. Let's try that out to our console. Now, let's trigger a click action to our high button. As you can see, when the button gets disabled and enabled again, it will wait for 4 seconds before callMeAgain function is called. This triggers another click to high button. The cycle continues every 4 seconds delay, which depicts the process of automated bets. You can stop the cycle by refreshing the page. Okay, just a little run through before we continue. We started this tutorial by knowing how to create functions, use global variables, and use of mutation observer function to cycle through continuous betting. Okay, I hope you do remember the last part of our previous video, where I left you with a problem. That is how to get total of your loss or wins in the game. We're going to solve that by using the things we learned in this lesson. I have here the program solution. Let's explain it to you line by line. Let's start with global variables. I use total wins as our global variable with a value of zeros. Next line is our mutation observer that checks for disabled property of the high button element. It will trigger a function named callMeAgain after 4 seconds. When the function callMeAgain is called, it will create 2 variables named did you win and did you lose variables. These variables will handle the resulting message after your bet. Once a bet is done, and these variables receive their values, it will go through conditional checks to identify if the bet wins or lose. In the test, there's an if statement that checks if you lose the bet. If it does, it will get the current loss you have for that bet and subtract it to the total wins variable, which we all know is a global variable. It stores the value and wait until it's needed for display. The second if condition works in contrary of the first if. It checks if you win the bet. And if you did win, it will get the current win you have for that bet and add it up to total wins variable. After these conditional tests, with an alert message. It will show us your winnings. Then, we call another click action to our hide button. Since there will be a click action again, the mutation observer will then detect the change of disabled property, and thus, will run call me again function after 4 seconds. This cycle runs repeatedly to give the idea of automatic bets. Now for the last line of the script. I created a simple function named StartNow. This function calls a click action to our hide button to start the script. Okay, I hope you did follow along the script explanation. Feel free to repeat the video until you're able to understand everything. Let's try it out to our console. Now, to begin the script, you just call the Start Now function, then press enter. As you can see, the script is working, and is telling you your current win-loss this session. After every 4 seconds, it will repeat itself as long as you do not refresh the page. Let us run it a little more, so that we can be sure that the script runs without errors. It seems the script works perfectly. We can now stop the script by simply refreshing the page. This tutorial session might be a little hard to grasp at first, but with continuous practice, and repeated listening to the video explanation, I don't think you'll get a hard time mastering the codes. So, I hope this helps you understand how to create scripts. The next video will be focused on how to increase or decrease bets, in response to the previous bet results. So, stay tuned for that. See you on the next video.